Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of our Navy League Learns webinar series. Today we'll be focusing on shipbuilding. Thank you to our sponsors, Tritech Manufacturing and L3 Harris for making today's webinar possible. I'd now like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Bryan Clark, Senior Fellow at the Hudson Institute. He's an expert in naval operations, electronic warfare, autonomous systems, military competitions, and wargaming. He has joined us before as a moderator at our Sea Air Space Expo. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Clark, to introduce today's speakers.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it. It's great to see you again. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for this Navy League webinar. Today, we're going to talk about shipbuilding. We have a great panel to do that. So I'll introduce them now. First up, John Rhatigan is the chairman of the Marine Machinery Association. He's been in that position since 2016. John is a longtime expert in the maritime industry. He's worked in there for 35 years. He's had a variety of challenging positions as a chief engineer, as vice president of operations, and vice president of engineering for multiple companies, including being the plant manager for several companies in Rhode Island and Pennsylvania that build systems that are used on today's surface ships and submarines. He's also worked at shipbuilders, at Bath Iron Works, and at Newport News Shipbuilding, where he's worked on the DDG-51 program and the Los Angeles and Virginia class attack submarine program. So we thank very much, John, for being here today. Also here with us today is Admiral Eric Verhaeghe, who is currently the commander of Navy Regional Maintenance Center and also NAVSEA-21, which is the surface ship maintenance planning organization. Admiral Verhaeghe is an acquisition professional and previously a longtime surface warfare officer. He served as a surface warfare officer on the USS Carr, where he commanded, but also the USS San Jacinto, USS Higgins, and USS Chancellorsville. He's in this acquisition community. He has worked for the Missile Defense Agency and working on Aegis Ashore, as well as being the commanding officer of Navy Surface Warfare Center Corona and Navy Surface Warfare Center Port Hueneme Division. His previous position prior to coming to the Navy Regional Maintenance Center was commander of the Surface Warfare Center and Undersea Warfare Centers in the U.S. Navy. And last up is Admiral Tom Anderson, Program Executive Officer for Ships right now for the U.S. Navy and in the acquisition organization. He's been in that job for a little over 3 months, I believe. So we could talk to him a little bit about that. His previous acquisition tour was as commander of Navy Regional Maintenance Center, which is currently Admiral Verhaeghe's job, and Navy Sea Systems Commander for Surface Ship Maintenance and Modernization, which is NAVSEA-21. Prior to that, he was also commander of the Navy Surface Warfare Center and Undersea Warfare Centers. So we'd like to welcome all of our panel members today, and thank you very much for being here, gentlemen. We hope to have a really interesting conversation about the future of shipbuilding and also about how we sustain a fleet that is in the process of undergoing dramatic change. But thank you very much for being here. So I'm going to start out with a question for the group, which will kind of give me a little bit of an icebreaker. Right now, the Navy is going through a force design process in concert with the Office of the Secretary of Defense to develop what the fleet design will be for the future. It's which will result in a force structure assessment and also a shipbuilding plan. There's a lot of change going on right now. The Navy is starting new programs in almost every ship class and is also being challenged to sustain the fleet that's already in operation. And at the same time, we've got COVID-19 and the potential for budget reductions or a flattening budget in the next several years. So in each of your organizations, how are you tackling the challenge of preparing for a new fleet design, a set of new changing ship designs, as well as sustaining today's fleet in a pretty budgetarily constrained environment? So we'll start with Admiral Verhaeghe, actually.
Good morning, Brian, and thanks to the Navy League too for hosting this. I think 118 years of support to sea services and families and advocacy and youth programs. So thanks for this opportunity. Gosh, Admiral Anderson, I've followed him twice. So any question that I can't answer, I know that he will be able to help me out for sure. I'm 4 months into the job. It's fast paced, it's challenging, it's rewarding, and no one works harder, honestly, than this group of folks that is building ships and repairing, sustaining, and modernizing them. I think there's a lot to be proud of. It is dynamic. The Fort Fleet's design piece, we're all eagerly looking forward to having that. It will really be something around which we all align and execute. This is, though, the right team to the combined industry government teams, the right team to pull it off. There are so many things that we're doing to try to improve the timeliness of our execution and industrial-based health and expanding, dry dock capacity. That's both a U.S. Navy effort and an industry effort, and often it's a joint effort, to be frank. So I would say we're going to get at the ability to handle these additional platforms or evolving fleet. Maybe the integration of unmanned the same way we always do, which is we're going to talk with each other and we're going to adjust together and respond. So that's not a super specific answer. I'd say this kind of planning is like every other thing that we do. We'll be ready and we'll deliver. So, but I am looking forward, like everybody on the net, I think, to seeing what it says. Over.
Thank you, Admiral. I appreciate that. Admiral Anderson, given the challenging period we're likely to enter upon with a changing fleet design, I know you've been doing a lot of work getting a sense of where we stand with regard to the industrial base, its ability to support a set of new platforms such as are being discussed right now by the Navy and the Marine Corps. How do you prepare for this evolution of the fleet in what is likely to be a pretty constrained budget environment? You're muted.
Let's try that. Do you have me? All right, great. Thank you very much. MS Teams, all these platforms, trying to figure out where the unmute button is the biggest challenge of our current day. So Bryan, appreciate you moderating the panel today. The question you're starting off with is a great question. We're entering a changing time. It seems like we're always entering a changing time, but lots of no shortages of challenges. As I come into the job and I enter forums like this, I really appreciate these kind of forums because I don't think we can over communicate kind of what it is we need and how we're going to go about getting it. From the ship acquirer's perspective, things that we should consider as we move into this period of new platforms. Top of my list, and I would say if I had a list of 5, it would be 1, 2, and 3 is capacity and capability of the industrial base. It's at the top of the list. What do we have today? What do we need for tomorrow? And then how do we efficiently and effectively transition between the two? It's not easy. It's not an easy process to change, and we need to do it mindfully. I think the first part of that question about what we have today is an interesting discussion in itself. We could spend the entire time talking about what we in the United States have as industrial capacity. My experience in the last 3 months, I've been visiting the yards trying to get a sense for kind of the state of the new construction industrial base. And I will tell you, it's vast. We have a wide variety. We go from the tier 1 yards, which are very well facilitized to build large ships. So a lot of discussions about, hey, what are we going to be building in the future? We're currently facilitized in the larger yards to build larger platforms, down to the smaller yards, the dirt yards that are doing kind of a hybrid of some military work, but really a lot of commercial work, and how do we leverage on that going forward? And then underneath that, the associated supply chains. Any plans we have going forward need to take into account their health and avoid kind of the whipsaw that we do in the world that Eric lives in, that I just came from. Really a challenging place to provide stable work to the industrial base so they understand what they're getting going forward. So the first part is capacity and capability. Second part is design technology maturity. We need to use what's on the shelf and figure out how to best apply that to the requirements that we have. That's our fastest path to success. Where there is a requirement that can't be met today, we need to think through how we develop and mature it in a way that allows it to be produced efficiently without the need for going back and making significant changes while we're constructing it. That's been a challenge to us in the past. And I would say for ships and ship systems, which are a little unique, that can mean some form of land-based testing. How do we get the risk out of that platform before we're going into the production run and we can get to that smooth, efficient production that we need? Another consideration for today is timing of new starts interspersed with stable production lines, right? So we can't go out and change the entire force structure at one time. It's just not realistic. We don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the capability. So what is our programmatic and production bandwidth for new starts? How much of that can we do concurrently? We need to take into account the expertise that exists both in the Navy and in industry when it comes to new starts. And at the same time, we need to account for transition between the production lines. So that's really important. And then finally, stability in our plans. Stability in the plan is really important. Uncertainty has multiple negative impacts, as I'm sure many of our industry partners are familiar with regards to cost and schedule. Significant production runs are more cost effective in the acquisition of a vessel. So we need to be looking at what the long game is with regards to when we determine we're going to build a platform, how long are we going to build it for? And really with efficiency comes as a result of repetition. We have to do our reps and sets on a ship class to make sure we can get the price down. So I think, big picture wise, as we look at transition, those are the main factors that we need to take into account.
Thank you, Admiral. Absolutely. It seems like having a plan that's executable is going to be a critical element of supporting the ability of the industrial base to prepare for this. So John, to that point, the Admiral, as we were transitioning into a new fleet and dealing with the challenges of keeping today's fleet operating, what are you hearing from industry regarding their ability to support that? And aside from a plan, are there attributes of that plan that they're particularly looking for? I mean, so we've had lots of shipbuilding plans over the last decade, and those have not, over time instilled the kind of confidence that I think industry is looking for to be able to make investments in people and in facilities. So what's industry looking for as we transition into this new fleet? Oh, you're muted.
All right, there we go.
There you go.
Thank you, Bryan and the Navy League for this opportunity. And thanks again, Bryan, for the kind introduction. First of all, industry is happy to be working. We are ecstatic that we can support the warfighter, and we know that is our #1 job, is to make sure the warfighter has the equipment that is readily available and working every day. Some of the things that we think as an industry of what we'd love to see a little bit more, or some, going forward, is we'd love to see the Navy ask industry for ideas. We need to somehow streamline that process. I mean, there are, available methods like the SBIR and things like that, which isn't always available to large businesses, but we need to streamline how we get good ideas to the Navy. We need to get back to that team mentality. Back in the DDG 51 days, there were, it was a tough start, and I was there. I was a production manager on DDG 53, and everybody says, well, why don't you go look how DDG 51 did it? And I was like, that was the last thing we wanted to do sometimes, but we got together with the Navy, we got to Navy with the shipyard, we got to Navy together with the equipment guys, we get together with soup ship, and we solved problems. And we made that second ship of the class a much more readily acceptable to the Navy, flew through in-serve. It was just a much better ship because we worked together. Robust specifications. Obviously, it really helps to have good specs when you start on any new ship class, or any, it's like, let's get that stuff ironed out before we just send it out to industry to make parts that may or may not work. And again, industry always wonders, what's the goal for the Navy? What's the goal for the fleet going forward? Are we going to still have all the carrier battle groups? Are we going to start filling the carrier battle groups with smaller unmanned vessels? Industry really doesn't know yet. And again, maybe those decisions haven't been made yet, but it would be helpful to the industry to get that out. And again, just quickly, pre-COVID, what were our industry's biggest problems that I saw? Workforce development. I mean, try to find a good welder or a machinist, not that easy. Obviously, cyber is here, and we all have to deal with that. And then obviously steady workloads. It's hard to man up those factories if you don't know what your workload is going to be 2 years, 4 years, 6 years from now. So post-COVID, what are our problems? The same exact ones. Now we have COVID to deal with. We have extending lead times. We have quality. We want to make sure that the quality is better than before. And it's important that we all work together to make that happen.
Thanks, John. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna, as I go through these questions, I'll note one thing for the audience is we're gonna be taking questions from you as well. So please enter those into, or send those to the Navy League, or enter those in the chat block so we can incorporate those into the conversation. I've got a couple of questions in the queue that we'll address later. So just so you know that we are gonna be able to take questions for the panelists as we go through today's program. So to move on, one of the things we've been working on in this fleet design effort that we're part of with the Office of the Secretary of Defense has been operations and sustainment costs. In a lot of cases, when you build out a fleet architecture and you do the shipbuilding plan, and then you look at how much it's going to cost, what kills us is the O&S cost tail that goes along with these platforms. And we're having to actually modify some of these fleet designs to address the fact that they're more expensive to operate and sustain as today's fleet. Admiral Verhaeghe, what are some of the things that you're doing within the maintenance organization, the maintenance enterprise, to improve the costs for maintaining the fleet and sustaining it, as well as just making it more predictable, I guess, over time?
Yeah, Brian, thank you for that question. I would bin my response into a couple of ways. One is directed maintenance. 2 is a stable and predicted demand, and then 3, kind of maybe kind of a different ways, or kind of innovation kind of ecosystem approach, on the regional maintenance and kind of the modernization, sustainment, and repair kind of a field. By background, I've had 3 separate tours in the R&D side of the Navy and R&D and engineering side of the Navy. And as I've transitioned over to this side of things, some of what I'm used to seeing from tools that are in place or funding that's available, I don't, hiring authorities, I don't see some of those things in place in the magnitude that I'm used to. So one of my focuses really is to create innovation ecosystems focused on the maritime trades in the ports of interest. My goal is to partner with industry, to John Rhatigan's point, not just with a contract, but also ways that are beyond that, right? How are we developing our collective workforce? What are the kind of research and development things that we can do that would drive down cost and improve productivity? I had a fascinating discussion with a leader on the West Coast recently about different ways to do dry docks and what that can mean from a throughput perspective and a cost perspective. That's the kind of partnership that we're trying to do. We have done some public-private partnership, right? DPA and CARES Act would be one example where there's federal dollars going and it matched with industry dollars. We had one repair yard on one of our ports that is actually, Navy gave them access to a spot of land that is allowing that company to expand its capability and bring an additional dry dock to the port. And on the Navy side, of course, our commitment was we gave them use of the land, and we also even contributed a modest amount of dollars for kind of wetland restoration. So that's I think a win-win, win for the port, a win for the company, and a win for the taxpayer as we get added capacity to that port. I would say directed maintenance. This is something that others, including Tom Anderson, really got the ball rolling. but we're trying to double down on, right? So it's almost like the mindset of preventative vice, medicine versus corrective medicine, right? So directing a certain amount of, and our target is around 50 to 55% of every availability be deliberately directed. We know it in advance. We can plan for it, both on the government side and on the industry side, right? So, I mean, and the alternative is that we have stuff fail while the ship is operating, which is untenable, right? And the last thing is steady demand. For those that have been in this business a lot longer than me, the feedback I get is this port loading projection that we just put together. It's a fleet regional maintenance center effort. It has the flattest, least spiky kind of demand over the next several years that anybody can remember. And the cool thing, it was fleet operators who have this challenge of needing to put ships to sea. They are talking the language. They are speaking about the importance of level loading for industry, which is just good for everybody and good for maintenance and repair outcomes. So I would, and there are things we're doing with bundling of contracts. Really all of us shifting to a fixed price mindset as well is part of it, right? We're just trying to be more disciplined with our requirements, disciplined with our execution, and the more disciplined and predictable we are, I think that is good for profits for all of our industry partners, but it's also it can drive down a cost as well. So that's kind of, broadly, it's directed maintenance. It's kind of a steady and consistent demand. And then maybe some partnerships in ways that either it's public-private partnerships or innovation ecosystems that are kind of outside the FAR, but it's all focused on collective action for collective success. Over.
Thanks, Eric. That makes a lot of sense. And some of those same techniques and investments are things that I know that are probably beneficial in the shipbuilding world. So, Admiral Anderson, some of the ideas that Admiral Hage brought up. So, research and development to improve production methods and facilities, and trying to create a sustainable demand signal, trying to afford shipbuilders the ability to adjust their schedules to be able to be more efficient, even though it might be what's different what the Navy wants to do. So schedule flexibility is an element of this too. So what are some of the things that you see as being tools in your toolkit going forward as you try to enable the shipbuilding industry to become more efficient and cost effective, and better able to accommodate what's going to be a changing demand signal as we move into this new fleet design?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and I'll start just kind of by framing an observation that says, in the new construction world, we have tremendous visibility into the cost of what it's taking to maintain the ships that are in service. And we have visibility to it because our budgets are constrained in buying new systems because we're spending a lot of money maintaining the systems that we have. So I would share that in my experience in acquisition, I have not seen the kind of pressure I'm seeing today with regards to on the front end, focusing on how the ships are going to be maintained in a cost-efficient way going forward. So that kind of permeates all the discussions as we're talking about future ship classes, where in the past, life cycle was something that may have been talked about at the end of the brief in maybe like 2 or 3 bullets. It's now up in the front matter, and it's really part of the design calculations as we're going forward and we're determining what we're going to build next. Is putting that requirement set in up front to talk about kind of what the maintainability characteristics and requirements for that ship class is going to be. That's a huge swing. The forums that we use internal to the Navy to kind of get ourselves through the milestones associated with the new program, the sustainment is absolutely a focus in it. I think it was last year, RDA was given the umbrella of responsibility across not only acquisition but sustainment. He stood up a director, a DASN for sustainment. That group is running and finding best practices across the entire enterprise and sharing them across the enterprise. So I'll tell you, there's a lot of good momentum on the front end of the process that I think will drive us to better specifying our sustainment requirements up front. And then ultimately, when we work with our industry partners to achieve those sustainment requirements, we'll get their feedback and their insight. And we certainly get those as even in the concept phase when we're working through design studies. We're asking those kind of questions and we're getting that kind of feedback. And then I'll share with you for ships that are already in production, a wonderful relationship that I have with my partner, Admiral Hage there. He and I are co-located. We sit about 40 feet from each other, and we have this organizational construct that is team ships, which is, kind of sharing across all of the surface ships, findings on the in-service side that we can use to inform improvements on the new construction side, and discussions on the new construction side with the in-service, modernizers of the Navy, so we can ensure that we get the products delivered to the fleet in a sustainable way going forward.
Excellent.
Thanks, Admiral. That teamwork between the sustainment organization and the shipbuilding organization is going to be key, it seems, just from the analysis we've been doing, looking at the future fleet design. John, this brings up a point, that how is so you teamwork between the Navy and with industry is going to be critical, obviously. What do you see as the health of the supplier base right now for shipbuilding? Do we have a lot of fragility in the sole source providers and in providers that maybe have a large commercial business that's maybe more attractive to them, which means their military business is sort of a patriotic duty they may choose to continue or not continue? So how do you see the health of the supplier base, and what are some things that you think the government in this sense of teamwork can help with in terms of making the supply base healthier?
Sure. Well, thanks, Brian. Part of the issue for suppliers is getting equipment. You want to go and get it approved as quickly as possible. And right now, there's still a lot of detriment to that happening. There's no real direct conduit for a manufacturer to get even the piece of equipment shock approved, for example. You have to have basically someone as a prime that will, support you and will get you in line. The Navy facilities are burdened right now. There's a lot of constraints. There's a lot of people trying to get their same piece of equipment through, for example, shock test. And if you don't have good support from the primes that is, again, trying to help you get into the Navy queue, you have no progress at all. Some of the things that we've tried to do is look at, okay, what are some of the best practices out there for getting things done? One of the great place we visited last year was a place called Metal Shark Boats down there in the middle of Louisiana. Just a fantastic shipyard. And you go in there and you say, oh my God, everybody is working and the productivity is off the charts. And you say, how do they do that? Well, they do it by, they have 3 days worth of work in front of every worker. That's their motto. If they don't have 3 days worth of work in front of somebody, they're failing. So that means people aren't going out and looking for tools or looking for plans or looking for their supervisor to help them. It's already there. We need to bring that mentality to both shipbuilding and manufacturing. It's like, and I basically think it comes down to planning. They're doing a great job planning their work. They have a pretty robust backlog right now. Of course, like anybody, they run into issues. When the government shut down, 2 years ago, they had a whole bunch of ships there that were ready to be shipped as FMS, but they couldn't because the FMS office was shut down. So they had a ton of inventory just sitting there that was built that they couldn't ship or couldn't get paid for. So we all have issues we have to work through. A couple of nice things that are happening in the background. We visited Danville, Virginia this past January. Down there, they have a facility that is actually pumping out machinists, welders, metrology, QA people, and it's something that right now that IBAS has just funded. They call it the Accelerated Training and Defense Manufacturing Program. that now the public shipyards, it's going to be available to them to send their people down to get trained. So their goal is to do 2 years worth of training in 4 months, and they're doing it. And it's not that you're just putting out great machinists or great welders. They're teaching these guys and ladies conflict resolution. They're teaching them how to work as a team, planning. You know, they're getting supervisory skills right now. And some of these kids are 18 years old, and they're really already robust workers right when they're coming out of there. So on top of that, there's and Admiral Hage, we talked a little bit about this the other day. There's a consortium for maritime sustainment technology. It's basically making some money available so that some of those good ideas can get out to the fleet, or at least try them out. You know, they're talking about having like $240 million worth of money available to try to promote some good ideas. So there's things happening in the background that are gonna make the Navy and the industrial base stronger, because it's important. And like I said, we got to get those good welders. And one thing I've found out in the last couple of years is females make the best welders. Sorry guys, it's being proven every day down at Newport News, because they really have pushed, you know, bringing in female welders. They're finding out they're craftsmen. They're doing a great job. So it's again an untapped talent that's now being tapped. And again, with that, I'll shut up for a minute, but thank you.
Thanks, John. Yeah, that brings up, that's a very good point about small businesses, small organizations that have some ideas or have a capability. Often the Navy works through the primes or through ship repair yards, and then they don't necessarily directly interface with these small companies. Admiral Verhaeghe and Admiral Anderson, are you reaching out more to small businesses that are pursuing some of these innovative solutions? I know that SBIR grants and some other grants have been given to try to promote these, but I don't know if that's something that the Navy is actively doing, or is it still kind of primarily going through the ship repair yards or through the primes to reach them?
I just share a thought, and then Admiral Verhaeghe can jump on it if I got it wrong for the repair side. Again, I just spent the last year working in C-21, and one thing I'll share with you is I didn't understand the importance of associations, professional associations, until I came into that job. So, you know, working with the local ship repair associations, and then the National Association, and then the Suppliers Association, I really found those to be wonderful venues to have discussions, because everyone's an equal in those discussions. Everyone gets a voice. And what I would tend to find is that, you know, during my normal encounters with my counterparts that were the primes, I would get their perspective. When I got into those larger forums, I found out a lot of the issues that were bothering, or issues with the supply chain and subcontractors. And in that venue, I became aware of it, and then we could go address it. I mean, John brings up a great example when you talk about qualifications of equipment. Where my head goes is probably most programs are focused on getting their platform through the certification process, but there's absolutely methods to get individual pieces of equipment qualified. And it's probably a discussion about how to do that, right? Laying out the roadmap. So when I'm a supplier and I'm interested in doing it, who do I call? What process do I follow? And I think you'll find when you engage in those discussions with leadership, we'll bend over backwards to make sure we're giving you the insight and the information so we know about how to do it. So again, I'll just kind of foot stomp the importance of associations. And in this new job as PEO ships, I'm getting educated on them. I have to figure out how to plug myself in properly to them so I can have the same kind of dialogue. But on the repair side, I felt like we were in a really good place with industry. We could talk openly and get the issues on the table, and the highest priority ones we went after, and everybody had a good understanding of kind of what the focus areas were. So I'll ask Eric if he's got more to add to that.
Yeah, I'll make the quick comment that we're trying to buy better as well, you know, with more directed kind of maintenance or repair. I don't want to, you know, just buying onesie twosies and then everybody does a bunch of grommet jumping to get it there on time is not good for anybody, right? So what we're trying to use is partner with Naval Supply System and Defense Logistics Agency and others to buy more deliberately and more proactively. And hopefully that sends a more consistent, proactive demand to industry. On the piece about associations, I'll give you two examples that I'm excited about, and I worked on both of them. In my last job, little knowing that I would actually inherit some of the goodness that came with it. But one is just other transactional authorities that lowers the barriers for smaller businesses and non-traditionals to get into the sector. And I think it helps then provide a stronger base for our primes. But other transactional authorities, we've asked Naval Surface Warfare Center Philadelphia, who's very HM&E focused, to put in place that other transactional authority piece, and they're doing that. And I know that folks are, that process is well underway. The other one that I encouraged is the proliferation of ASN RDA, Secretary Gertz's, he calls it his Naval X technology bridges, right? And so they put them what I'm really excited about is the fact that they're increasingly in fleet concentration areas, which gives them a slightly bluer collar that's a terrible term, but it gives them that kind of saltwater focus, right? And there is one in Hampton Roads, and my team in Mid-Atlantic Regional Maintenance Center and my staff, both in Norfolk and here, are connecting with them. And so I think those are ways that you can encourage, connect, provide mutual support, and then you pair that with a more consistent, predictable demand. That's good for companies trying to get their parts, products kind of matured and ready for sale. Over.
Yeah, Admiral, that all makes sense. And the Tech Bridge discussion has been very active. I know, companies are looking for ways to be able to connect with the government, and that's just another mechanism to do that. This raises the issue. So you both have talked before about, and also John talked a little bit about the importance of having a mature design, mature technologies for new ships as we start to pursue them. Both because that results in the ship being a more likely success story, but also enables them to be better understood when we get to the maintenance side of what's required to maintain this new ship, because we better understand the equipment that's on it. And Congress has been pushing this as well, the need to mature certain key technologies in advance of the ship's design becoming final. So has this been a discussion that you are both involved in, Admirals, and also John, in terms of how the surface warfare centers, how the research organizations need to do a better job of, or how they're going to do some more land-based prototyping, how we're going to mature designs before we begin construction, and then what that might mean for the shipbuilding plan. So we cannot be, in this case, then as optimistic as maybe we have been in the past with shipbuilding starts, to say, well, when we get a new design, it may be several years before we're really able to begin construction. Because we're going to need time to mature the design and mature the technologies. So what work is being done in terms of preparing for that need to mature designs and technologies? And have you been providing this sort of input to the shipbuilding planning process so that this back in the Pentagon has been factored into their calculations?
Who would you like to start?
So if Admiral Anderson could start, then we'll go to Admiral Verhaeghe and then John.
Okay.
Sure. So what I'll share with you is it's been an active discussion in the 3 months in the job. There's been quite a bit of discussion about future programs and what are, I'll say, credible timelines to develop a new program and get into production and deliver it. I'll go back to the discussion that says we're probably able to deliver programs faster with less new technology embedded in them. So that's part of the calculus in the discussions up front. Okay, how much technical risk are we taking? And then laying out the credible plan that says I'm going to mature that technology to the point where it's ready to be produced. We have some examples of programs where we took, had a significant amount of technical risk rolled into a single program, and it ended up biting us. I'll talk DDG 1000, which is one of the ships in my portfolio. We now have 3 ships, challenging to cost effectively manage the life cycle of 3 ships, right? So a lot of technology rolled into those platforms, and led us to a place where we had significant schedule delays. We are having discussions today about when we look at platforms, what's the off-the-shelf or parent design that we can capture and run with. We've seen good adaptation of that through the FFGX program, right? So you start with a parent design, you understand the risk associated with that, you lay in a reasonable time for the development of that technology, and then you move forward. So I think going forward, most of our discussions are in line with what was achieved on the FFGX program as far as how we're going to take a reasonable amount of risk and how we're going to retire the risks in those programs going forward. And it goes back to that comment that I made earlier that says, hey, when you get to a requirement set that can't be met with today's technology or technology that's on the shelf, what's the credible plan to mature it and then instantiate that in the ship? So that's been my experience so far as we kind of look through to the future for us.
Yeah, I would add a couple of things. So one is just designing sustainability in from the very beginning, right? The sensors and the data, and can we get to truly predictive, failure. I talked about a lot of directed maintenance. That could be expensive. You could overreach. It could actually drive expense, right? There's a sweet spot there. It's an optimization thing. The other one is maybe it's the thought of simplifying or reducing the diversity of systems. And I'm thinking about HM&E, and a good example would be the number. This is an area where team shifts that Tom and our team and my team, us working together, is just reducing the number of steering systems and the navigation systems. There's only so much money to sustain, and it makes it worse when you proliferate the amount of things that those finite amount of dollars need to be spread across. Think about it. Industry, the warfare centers, the regional maintenance centers, they need to have 23 experts on 27 different systems as opposed to really concentrating. So I think there's ways to simplify and reduce the diversity of systems, and that's good. The last point I'll make is, HM&E systems in particular are increasingly software intensive, right? Sliding pad eyes, ankle windlass, steering, davits, and so software, we've come to realize, is more and more central to how those things operate. And are we testing them with the full redundancy, with the full regime of testing that we need to, as we're, we got to test it from an HM&E perspective, but we also got to test it from a software perspective. And so I think at Philly, I've seen a shift. This is NSWC Philly, a nice shift to kind of side-by-side V&V with industry and the Warfare Center there, working side-by-side on steering and navigation systems. So that's how I would tackle that question. Reducing the diversity, better testing in more collaborative ways, and maybe just designing for sustainability for, from the very beginning. Over.
John?
All right, I totally agree. I mean, we need to find a better way to realize how expensive this equipment's going to not only be, how much it's going to cost up front, but how much is it going to be to maintain it, and all the way to its end of life. For example, I remember 10 years ago sitting at Newport News, where the current president was telling us how much an aircraft carrier costs over its lifetime. And they put in $500 million at the time to decommission it. I think we're finding now that $500 million isn't even close to what it takes to decommission the aircraft carrier. So there's things we're learning as we go ahead and do things the first time, and things like that, But as far as equipment, certainly off the shelf, but it has to be hardened. I mean, obviously, as we go forward with more technology, we have more cyber risks than ever. So using commercial equipment isn't always the right thing to do. We need to make sure that this equipment is robust. Like Admiral Hage says, it's been previously used somewhere. Software is obviously a big issue. I still remember on the DDG 1000, a lot of that equipment software was based on a Windows 7 platform. Well, as anybody knows now, Windows 7, or I think it was Windows 95, things like that, you can't even support that software anymore. So, that's not anybody's fault. No one really realized that Windows was going to stop supporting software that quick after putting it out, but it happens, and we have to probably plan ahead better for that. Another key is get the Navy involved prior to critical design reviews. I still remember doing a critical design review on the DDG 1000 where we were told we had to have sensors on everything. Okay, great. And we also had to make some equipment that we thought was unsafe. The prime didn't. They said, hey, you got a contract, build it to the contract. So we did, or we went ahead with the design. We finally got the Navy involved at the critical design review, and they came in and said, we think this stuff's unsafe. I was like, holy smokes, we just wasted a year and a half designing where, maybe, have a preliminary design review might have caught that back then. So again, it's all working as a team. It's using robust equipment. There's, again, nothing wrong with off-the-shelf equipment, tried and proved. That's definitely the way to go to take a lot of the risk out. But manufacturers want to help. They want to work together with the Navy, because there's a lot of times that Navy expert does know more than anybody else in the country, and we need to get them involved up front. So thank you.
Thanks, John. One of the technologies that our viewers have brought up is integrated electrical power distributions or integrated power systems being used on ships. To what degree are we looking at using integrated power systems in future classes of ships? How is the effort going to mature that technology? And then for John, how is industry preparing to incorporate more of this integrated power system technology into Navy ships? Because from my understanding, it's pretty common in the commercial world. So Admiral Anderson, start with you.
Yeah, so I'll just share, when we talk about land-based test sites, I'm going to go back to Philly, and I'll talk a little bit about kind of the evolution of Philly. So Philly, back, thinking on John, I was a officer in USS Arleigh Burke back in the day when there was only one Arleigh Burke on the East Coast. And, getting educated on how that ship worked meant to stop in Philly, right? So we would go to Philly. They had the land-based test site. They had the subject matter experts there. There absolutely was risk realized in the beginning of the DDG 51 program, but we had a place on land. We could do testing, and we were maturing, a lot of the marine propulsion and electrical distribution components. So you go to today, we're heading towards Flight 3 DDG. That is a pretty significant change in our electrical distribution structure and the power that ship can generate. And we've done the same thing. We've set up a land-based test site, and for the electrical distribution, that system on board the ships, DDG 125 and 126, is being reduced as the result of land-based testing in Philly. Go forward to integrated electric plants and integrated electrical distribution systems, and there's efforts going on through our program office. PMS 320 is our electric program office. They reside here in PEO ships, and they're bringing components to Philly so we can do that same kind of risk reduction in advance of using that technology in future ships. And there's been lots of discussion about what the large surface combatant looks like going forward. And that type of technology certainly would be available, and the path we're going down would mature it in advance of that, class being, the material solution for that class being defined. So there already is work at the warfare centers to kind of de-risk what the next, large surface combatant propulsion and electrical distribution systems look like.
Thanks, Admiral. Admiral Hage, how have you, are you preparing? You previously have been commanding officer of two different Navy Surface Warfare Centers, and obviously the Navy Surface Warfare Center writ large, and now in your role as the regional maintenance commander. How are you preparing for the introduction of integrated power systems? Does that change how you prepare for maintenance availabilities? Do you anticipate this is going to be a major component of the fleet, or do you not think this is going to be something that is brought in more broadly?
Bryan, I don't have a lot of insight as to the broader strategy for IPDS. What I have What I am working on, though, is to make sure that today's regional maintenance centers are best postured, for the future. What is today's demand? What's the future demand? What are the types of things our sailors that are there should be working on? In one of our missions, and something that I share with the warfare centers, is the responsibility to provide technical assistance to our ships. Sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's via distant support. And so I want to make sure that there are no seams between us, particularly as technology evolves, right? Fiber optic cables, diesels. There are areas where we don't have the expertise where literally there's one guy or just a couple people that have expertise on a certain system. So we're trying to do a health assessment to make sure that on the OEM side and then on the regional maintenance side, that we have all the right capability there. So not a specific answer, but it is, those broader trends are something we're looking at to make sure our posture is right. Over. Oh, and then with COVID, by the way, interestingly, we are seeing ships, more tech assists are being closed out with distant support than they used to be, right? So the sailors are becoming, the ships are becoming more resilient. That's an interesting side effect of COVID is they're getting more resilient, which I think is good for their confidence and good for warfighting readiness, because distant support won't always be there when you need it. Over.
Right, that's right. Great point, great point. John, if you could briefly address integrated power systems, and then there's a couple more questions we want to ask before we wrap up. Thanks.
Well, I'm certainly not the IPT guru in the room, but we have some great vendors in the MMA. The L3Harris, one of our sponsors. We have DRS, we have Bogue Systems. They are all, that's their deal. They know that the Navy, as the fleet grows, and you build a ship today and you still want it running 35, 40 years from now, it's going to need excess capacity today. And these guys are all working diligently on that. We realize that, IPT is getting more complicated, but they're working hard to solve the problems, and they're readily available to help out whenever needed. And, it's obviously, for a mechanical guy, I know that we need electricity. So, I'm all for it.
Good point.
Brian, can I just circle back on that real quick, just to discuss, just for a minute, to talk about the future maintenance of those kind of systems? And I just want to give you some perspective. There is that question that says, hey, with all this work that's going on with regards to integrated power, for Admiral Hage, for example, hey, where are you at with developing your workforce that's the integrated power group? And what I would share with you, that's not how it works, right? What needs to happen is the new construction, as we're building the ships and bringing the technology on board, we need to create a wide enough swath of experience that as those ships roll out into the fleet, that expertise will kind of grow. You don't want to build that expertise to have it sit waiting for the next 7-8 years until the capability gets out. What you want to do is you want the industrial base that's supporting the development and construction of the ships and all the infrastructure that does new construction to be mature and expanding as the number of ships entering the fleet expands. It's very much like the DDG-51 model, right? I mean, DDG-51 back in the day painted a pretty wide swath with regards to the new construction capability, and then we were able to cover down as those ships got into service with expertise because we grew it. Just kind of my thought going forward on that capability.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So Admiral Anderson, one of the questions that got raised, which I thought was a very pertinent one, is we talked a little bit about the changes in the force design. You talked about your recent trip down to the Gulf Coast to look at the shipyards down there. What do you see as the health of the large shipyards that are kind of the mainstay today? A lot of them have made significant investments in their infrastructure to improve workflow, to improve efficiency. And then we're going to expand now the industrial base theoretically to include a bunch of smaller shipyards that maybe build mostly commercial ships today. Do you see the large shipyards as having to move into this smaller ship business? Do you see them as continuing to get enough business to maintain their current workload? Or are we going to have to see some kind of hybrid investment on the government's part to sustain now a wider shipbuilding industrial base with some focused investment. How do you see that playing out, or at least what are your initial ideas on how it might play out?
It's a little chicken or an egg, right? So what does the force structure come up with? If the force structure comes up with the need for a portfolio of lesser large ships and more small ships, then the larger yards will have to determine how to flex to that, right? Their infrastructure is set up to build big ships. Are they capable of building smaller platforms? I think the answer is yes. There's also lots of opportunity for smaller yards who already are pretty efficient in building some of those smaller ships. So assuming that the piece of the pie does not grow, there will be a discussion about where those dollars go and where that capability exists. My trip down to the Gulf Coast was very interesting. I had not in my past dealt much with ships that were not surface combatants. So I knew the surface combatant yards, but I didn't really know the dirt yards that were doing a lot of the work, not only in the amphib profile, but also foreign military sales, auxiliaries, and there's a lot of capability along that Gulf Coast. Doing commercial work, and as that oil rig energy work kind of subsides, they'd be very interested in building ships and craft for the U.S. Navy. So your question is a great one. Not knowing what the force structure analysis is going to tell us we need, I think it's hard to say at this point. I think the big yards could flex? Absolutely. Are they better aligned at the moment to build the larger ships that they're building? Yes. We'll just have to see how that plays out.
Thanks, Admiral. So to wrap up, the one last question for the group. The Commandant of the Marine Corps recently talked about the concern he has regarding the ability of the Navy shipbuilding industrial base and the ship repair industrial base to restore or rebuild the fleet in the case of losses that might occur in a conflict. And he talked about how this is an element of deterrence. If you don't have the ability to sustain a fight or protracted fight, then perhaps your adversaries think they can wait you out or just push through, and eventually you'll get to the point where you can no longer continue the combat. So how do you feel the industrial, what is the health of the industrial base from your perspective in terms of its ability to continue a protracted effort against a determined adversary? And I'll start with Admiral Anderson.
Yeah, protracted is the interesting part of that discussion. What does protracted mean? What's the scenario and how long does it go? I think about 2 years ago, Secretary Gertz got a group of us together, and we had a discussion about wartime planning. And it really was just what you talked about. We had the discussion, his background coming from special forces is they're always at war. So it's not like there's a peacetime special forces, there's a wartime special forces. In the Navy, he was asking the same kind of questions. How prepared are we to go to the fight, and what would we do, and how do we get better prepared? So we've put some energy into developing what I'll say is kind of the playbook, which is if we had to pull the trigger in wartime or leading up to wartime, what kind of things would we go after? What kind of authorities would we look for from Congress that we currently don't have that would allow us to go faster? For the new construction guys, how would we rapidly get the ships that were close to delivery out of the yards? How would we accelerate the ships that were in the yards? And then what could we expect for kind of throughput going forward? What repair capability would we leverage to do maybe new construction kind of work? What kind of crafts could they do? So that calculus exists. That's been a work in progress for about the last 2 years. But I would tell you it goes beyond what we're currently doing. It really is a more national look at what is the national capacity and how would we energize it.
Thanks, Admiral. Admiral Hage?
I can't wait. This was a really good question. We don't have enough capacity for peacetime. We're not as effective or efficient. We have so much to be proud of, but we're not as effective or efficient. We can't get ships delivered on time with the predictability we need today. Think about how long it took Fitzgerald and McCain to get back in operations, right? We'll see what we do with the Bon Richard, but that'll be a massive effort to repair her if that's where the decision goes. And I'm talking years and most likely, right? I think public and private investment is needed. And we're seeing that with DPA, we're seeing that with CARES. I think it's fascinating to see venture capital coming in, right? So, and we talked earlier about public-private partnership, right? I think there's a lot more to be done. It's untapped in the area of public-private partnership. With venture capital, take a big company like Carlyle, right, who invests in Titan invests in, in Bigger and MHI. I think that's a sign, if they're putting money into it, they see a future in it. And I think that's welcome. Yeah. And anyway, so you're right. We don't have enough capacity. We need more, and we've got to. We can keep getting better. I think we're on the right trajectory, but we have more to do.
Thanks, Admiral. It's a great point about venture capital and new sources of investment coming in. That's an area that we'd like to explore further. So, John, over to you.
Today it was announced that Electric Boat just got their first overhaul contract in a while, which is great news for industry. There are shipyards that maybe don't think they're back into overhaul mode, but they probably need to. I'll give you a good example, Bath Iron Works. They should be able to do overhauls and new construction at the same time. I know they just went through a strike and they were behind schedule and things like that, but I think they can get back on the schedule, and I think they should be available or trying to make themselves available for overhaul work. I mean, same with Austal. It's like, okay, they've all been on the new construction because they think they can plan better and things like that, and they may think that overhaul is a tough business right now. Overhaul's always been a tough business. Going now to more the firm fixed price. It might be a little less incentive for some people, but I think if it's planned correctly and the growth doesn't come in, it can be done profitably for anybody. So I think there's capacity there that hasn't been tapped yet. I know that people have tried in the past, and just because someone said no in 2018 doesn't mean they're going to say no in 2021. So to both Admiral Anderson and for Hage, you guys have challenging jobs to do, and anything we can do to help out, we're here to help. And like I said, if you need me to go talk to a shipyard, I can go talk to a shipyard too. I'm actually on the Shipbuilding Council too, as a partner member, so I have a voice there. But again, we're here to help. I think you guys are doing a heck of a job, and we're ready, willing, and able to help whenever possible.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank our panel today. This has been a terrific discussion. John Rhatigan from the Marine Machinery Association, and Admiral Eric Hage from Navy Regional Maintenance Center, and Admiral Tom Anderson, who's the PEO ship. Thank you all, Admirals and John, for being here today. And I want to thank the Navy League for hosting this webinar. It's been a terrific discussion, and thank you all for being here today. Back over to you, Mike Stevens.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you to Mr. Clark and to all our speakers for their insights today. And thank you again to our sponsors, Tritech Manufacturing and L3 Harris. We hope you can join us next month for the beginning of a new venture for the Navy League. Starting September 16th, we will be airing a monthly docuseries on the Mayflower autonomous ship. This content is possible through our new partnership with IBM, as we aim to inform the American public and the sea service stakeholders on the importance of artificial intelligence in the maritime domain.